Hey everybody, welcome to another Cricut Craft tutorial. Today we are going to learn how to use heat and bond and cut that with our Cricut and then apply it to a fun project. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to open my shapes I found a heart I liked. So I'm going to go ahead and upload an image. I'm going to upload this heart shape that I liked. I found it on Google, so it's really simple, and this one's actually already formatted for the Cricut, so it should, with any luck, just upload. See how it doesn't have any background? So all we have to do is just go ahead and choose one of these, doesn't really matter, and click continue. And we don't have to delete any of the background, so we're going to go ahead and click continue again, and I'm going to save it as a cut image. Now I do have some materials, and I'll show you guys all of those, but you're going to want to make sure that you do have the right amount of material to make your project. So you'll need to know what size. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my heart, and I'm going to make him much bigger. I'm going to put him on a canvas tote for a Mother's Day gift. So we're going to go ahead and expand him. I'm going to make him pretty big just because I do want him to show up really well. And actually, I'm going to show you guys a trick. So see how my heart has this flat bottom? I just noticed that. I don't like it. I wish it had a tip. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to use a diamond, and I'm going to add a tip to the base of my heart here. So all I'm going to do is move my diamond down until I have a tip that I like, which that looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a square around both, and I'm going to weld them. What that's going to do is add a tip to our heart, and I like that better. I think it looks a little more finished and refined rather than a flat bottom. So now that we have the size of our heart, this is a super easy project. So this is something that you guys can do very quickly. It's great to use with kids, and you can make some really fun shirts or tote bags, or really just about anything that you want. So we're going to go ahead and click Make It for now, and I'm going to show you guys how to get your fabric ready to cut. The materials you're going to need are Cricut mat. I'm using a brand new green, so it should be sticky enough to use. You're going to need heat and bond. I got this at Joann Fabrics. I used a coupon, but you can get it on Amazon, and I will put a link below. It's actually cheaper on Amazon. Pair of scissors. Whatever item you're putting your project on, I'm using a 100% cotton canvas tote. You are going to need your fabric. I got a 100% cotton, super cute fabric. It is little panda bears. I use a cookie sheet to do my ironing on so that it doesn't ruin my table and so that it can conduct the heat from the back as well. And then I'm using just a simple in-home iron. So that's heating up. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I know how big my project's going to be based on how large it shows on my mat. So it's about 11 inches wide and 10.5 inches. So rather than use all my fabric, I'm going to go ahead and find the side of it here, and we're going to just kind of measure to see about how big we need of our fabric. And I'm going to cut it a little bit larger than it's actually needed. So I said it was like 11 wide. So I kind of get an idea of where I need to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my fabric. And there's kind of a funky edge here that I don't want to use. So I'm going to make sure to cut that off a little bit so that we don't see it. Now these scissors are sort of dull. I do need to purchase a new pair. So the edges of these are not going to be cut real nice just because these scissors are terrible. But I do recommend using a nice sharp pair of scissors for this. I just have not taken the time to purchase any or sharpen these. This part's super easy. You just kind of got to eyeball and know how big your project's going to be. Like I said, I'm cutting this a lot bigger than what my project actually is just because of that funky edge. But when we do this, we'll want to make sure that that funny edge is put so that the heart doesn't cut on it, because we did cut this quite a bit larger than what we actually need. So we'll just make sure that that funny edge is not included. So then you need your heat and bond, which you got to open. And it comes, this one is a yard, so you can get bigger sizes. I just got kind of whatever I had, you know, whatever I could find. And this, I'm going to show you, it's kind of like a papery material on one side, and then the other side has kind of a, like, I don't know, it's like a plasticky texture, if you guys can see that at all. It's a little bit shiny, and that is the part that's going to touch your fabric. So I apologize for the beeping. That's the iron telling me it's ready. So what we're going to do, and this is like a big chunk, is we're going to go ahead and cut out our heat and bond, because we don't want to use the whole sheet because we don't need it. So we're just going to go ahead and cut it to about the same size as our fabric, maybe a little bit smaller. Just enough that, again, you can make sure that your heart is going to cut on that. This is a lot easier to cut because it is like a paper, so the scissors aren't, you know, the fact that they're not super sharp doesn't completely matter. So we're going to go ahead and cut that. Put the extra to the side because we don't need it. And then I'm going to make sure that my pandas fit on it. I may need to trim my heat and bond down a little bit. Oh, no, yeah, a little bit. So I'm going to trim the heat and bond down a little bit so that it's not hanging off the bottom here because we don't need it. And I always save my little extra scraps because they do come in handy. So at some point you may need it. So just stick it in a drawer somewhere. But I do always keep my extra pieces. So the one thing you want to make sure that you do is you're going to take your fabric and you're going to flip it over so that your printed side, whatever side you're going to use, is out. Now see, my pandas here do go a certain direction, so we'll need to note that when we put it on to our mat. So I'm going to go ahead and I always like pre-iron the fabric that I'm putting it on because you want it to be warm and you want to get any of your wrinkles out. I have my iron set to cotton, which is the highest setting on my iron. There are some that do go higher, especially if you have a quilting iron. They tend to go a lot warmer. So make sure that you do pay attention to where you have your iron set because you don't want to burn your fabrics. So we're just going to warm up and get rid of some of these wrinkles in our Panda Bear fabric. And if it doesn't seem to want to come out from this direction, a lot of times I'll flip it and do the other side just to make sure I get all these wrinkles out, because sometimes the wrinkles are just a little bit stubborn, which I do see especially in some of these 100% cotton fabrics. You got to figure they've been sitting in the fabric store for quite some time. But I thought this panda was just so cute. And I do have a couple other patterns that we'll play with later with some other adventures with this heat and bond. But for now, I figured we'd get this one and use it because it's so stupid cute. Alright, so we have our wrinkles out. So we're just going to go ahead and lay our fabric down. And then we want to lay our heat and bond. Now, remember I told you this has like kind of a rough side and a paper side. You want to make sure that your paper side is down, or is up, I'm sorry, on this side. Because you want your sticky side, which is that gluey, papery side, on your fabric. So we're just going to go ahead and lay it out. You take your iron, and all you do is press your iron. And this you do just like you're ironing a shirt. You just press it on there just like you'd iron a shirt. And be careful because it does get pretty warm. So you don't want to burn your hand or anything. So just when you're holding down your fabrics, just make sure that you're not touching where you just ironed, because it does get a little bit hot. And you want to make sure this is really well pressed down, because you don't want it to move or come off, because this is what's going to hold our fabric to our design, or to our tote bag in this one. So we're just going to go ahead and just make sure this is well adhered to this. And I'm even going to make sure that it adheres over here where we're not actually going to cut, just so that it's easier when we pull this off. Because we are going to pull the paper off before we place this on our mat. And I'm actually going to cut the edges off of my fabric because I don't want those getting pulled up or torn while it's cutting the heart out. So we're just going to make sure this is really well on there. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave the iron on because we're going to need it again in a few minutes. But again, just make sure that you watch your cookie sheet is warm. So when you're cutting off of your fabric edge, just make sure that you are remembering that your cookie sheet's going to be pretty warm. So we're going to cut off our excess fabric, which should just be about 1 inch on every side. I'm just doing this, like I said, just to keep the mat a little bit cleaner, and so that it makes sure that it only cuts on my bonded fabric part and not on any of the part that doesn't have this. Because what this does is it essentially turns your fabric into like iron-on vinyl, if that makes sense to you guys. It is a really fun way to make these really cute fabric appliques. So without, you know, having to learn how to sew and all that. They are, however, not super sturdy. So you'll want to make sure with these that if you put them on a shirt that you can either stitch around them. Maybe you have someone that knows how to sew or you sew. Or you can make sure that you have, you hand wash your item. So we're going to just double check our measurements really quick. Oops, and it helps if I turn that the right way. So we've got plenty there. I may need to trim off a little bit off the side because it won't fit on my mat, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off to make sure that it does in fact fit on our mat because I don't want any hanging off. And again, I'm going to hang on to this little extra piece of bonded fabric here because we can use it for another project. So let me move some things out of the way here. I'm going to move our cookie sheet if it's cool enough. We won't need that for another minute while we load our mat. So I'm going to show you. Again, with this pattern, it does have a right side up and a wrong side. So we're going to make sure that we do use the right side up. I'm going to go ahead and use my new mat. Like I said, with this, you really should use a stronger grip mat, but this is brand new. Have not used it except once. And so we are going to go ahead and use it for this project. So all I want to do is make sure that my panda bears here are lined up well. Oops. And they were not. So we're going to go ahead and, you can see it's really sticky. We're going to go ahead and line them up on the top pretty well because that's where it's going to cut our heart out. So there's our top, and we're just going to press it down. And I'm just going to double check my sizing on my mat versus my design. And I might make my heart a hair smaller. So I'm going to, this is where you kind of want to make sure that you know exactly what size you're doing. I'm just going to make my heart just a couple inches smaller just to be safe. And then I'm going to go ahead and click make it. So we're going to go over to our machine, and I'm just going to move you guys right on over with me. So come on over here, and I'm going to readjust you a little bit because I need to show you your dial. So on my dial, I have my heart so that I can see where it's set a little bit easier. We need to set it down here at this bottom one that says bonded fabric. And that'll tell our Cricut how deep it needs to cut and where it needs to cut. So we're going to go ahead and click continue on our screen. And then the Cricut is going to go ahead and tell us to load our design. So we're going to go ahead and load it. I'm just going to make sure it's stuck down before I let it go. And I'm going to hit the Cricut button, which is the go button. And you'll see that it's going to start cutting out our fabric. Oops, and I just realized I left my A open. So just make sure that you've got your blade in properly and you can see that it's cutting. Again, I used a really super easy design. These do a little bit better with kind of simple, not too complex designs. If you're using something with a lot of detail, it may rip your fabrics. It may not cut properly. So let me move you down here so you guys can see, because we're going to pull off our extra. Oops. And with this one, you can leave the paper on or take the paper off. I left the paper on. So you can just take your extra piece of bonded fabric, move it aside. Again, you can always reuse it. And then I'm just going to pull the paper off. I've seen people do it both ways. So I like to leave the paper on, although I see with using this super sticky mat, I'm going to have to clean this bad boy. But this is a good opportunity to show you guys, you know, how sticky this mat really can be. So we're going to go ahead and, oops, and pull off our fabric. I should have taken the paper off, but I made a decision. I regret it. Lessons have been learned. So for future reference, if you do it, I would take the paper off. But now you see we have this nice panda heart. I think it's super duper cute. It came out really well. So we're going to go ahead and get our cookie sheet back out. And I'm going to move you guys back over this way. I know there's a lot of moving, but I feel like if I stop the video and restart, it just sort of loses some of what I'm doing. So I'm just using this canvas tote that I got from Amazon. I will put the link below. It's by a company called Aug Bunny, which is A-U-G Bunny. I have really, really liked their product. I've used it on a couple other tutorials, and I've used it for gifts. And I have been very impressed with the quality. of their tote bags. Their stitching is really nice. They have a really nice product. So I'm going to move you down here, because what we're going to have to do, again, is we're going to need to iron out all of our wrinkles on our tote bag. And I know you guys can't see the whole tote, but that's okay, because you just need to see where we're working. So we're just going to go ahead and get our iron. It's, again, set on cotton. This is 100% cotton. And we're going to make sure we get this ironed out. Just, you don't need to worry about every wrinkle on the bag. You just want to get the wrinkles to where you're working for sure out. But for me, I like to try to, you know, make sure I get a lot of wrinkles out, just because as you're working, and when you give it as a gift, you'll want to make sure it's wrinkle free. But for this video, we'll just get the wrinkles out of where we are working. So we're going to fluff it up a little bit just to make sure it didn't stick. All right. Now, I know there's a little bit of a wrinkle here. It looks worse in the video than it actually is in person, and it does come out. I've done this a couple times. So you want to make sure your fabric's nice and warm, and then you want to place your fabric down. So just figure out where center is. I always just eyeball it, but if you want, you can use a ruler. You can use like a T-square or a laser level, but I just eyeball. I have yet to really be too off. So once you've got your project set, and I can feel there's something stuck under this right here. There we go. There's a little fuzzy stuck under that one. The edges of this fabric are a little bit stringy. So you just want to make sure you're fully on your cookie sheet, and then you just take your iron, and just like you do with heat transfer, you want to press and press. And with this one, you can run it like a regular iron. The pressing does help to get it nice and hot, and I do tend to like run it over it just like an iron would, but hold it down and make sure it doesn't slide anywhere, especially for those first few things that you do with it, because you don't want it to come off. And you want to make sure that you get these edges really nice and adhered to your project, because that's where it could peel up if you're not careful. So we're just going to make sure that our edges are really well down. And we're just going to keep going over it. And my cookie sheet is popping because it's gotten hot. But I do find the cookie sheet to work really well, because again, it does add some of that heat from the back. My iron, for whatever reason, likes to beep all the time, and I don't know why. I think it's just evil. These can be done with a heat press as well. You would have to double check your temperature settings on something like this. I have not done one on a heat press. I've only done the heat and bond with an iron, but you can very easily do it with a heat press or with your easy press as well. But at this time, yeah, all I have is this home iron, so I do what I can. So once you've gotten this nice and warm, you just kind of want to let it set, and I'm going to just sort of double check my edging and just make sure that it looks like it's really adhered everywhere. And I'm especially going to pay attention to this bottom little tippy, because it's such a skinny tip. And we're just going to go ahead and just make sure that's really in there. And I'm going to go over it one more time. This is more just for my own brain here, so that I don't mess it up. And we're going to go ahead and just go over that. And we are done. Now, when taking this off of the cookie sheet, be very, very careful. The cookie sheet is incredibly warm. So I just always try to slide my cookie sheet out from under it without touching it too much, because it does get very, very hot. It does conduct the heat, and you can see actually how warm it was, because my table has a little bit of condensation on it. I'm going to go ahead and put my cookie sheet down somewhere so it doesn't burn me. Warm. And then we are going to show you our finished project. There is our finished tote bag. It came out really, really cute, you guys. I'm so pleased with how easy the heat and bond is to use, and especially with using the Cricut, they make sure you get accurate shaping. So rather than trying to cut this giant heart by myself, I was able to use my Cricut and do it. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down below. If you guys would like any other tutorials, please comment. I love making you guys tutorials. This is the heat and bond again, just so you can see what the package looks like. I will post a link for this below and a link for our canvas below. Make sure you do subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time. Make sure you do select that bell button as that is going to let you know when I do post a new video. And I hope you guys have a great day.